The Laundry is proudly produced by Strise, your AML automation software for faster onboarding, smarter monitoring, and growth without overhead. Welcome to The Laundry, the podcast connecting AML, compliance, and financial crime to the real world. We all saw the big, strong handshakes and the shared trip in the president's limo.
I've always had a fantastic relationship with President Putin, with Vladimir, but we had an extremely productive meeting and many points were agreed to. There are just a very few that are left. Some are not that significant. One is probably the most significant, but we have a very good chance of getting there. We didn't get there, but we have a very good chance of getting there. And Mr. President, I'd like to thank you very much. And we'll speak to you very soon and probably see you again very soon. Thank you very much, Vladimir.
Next time in Moscow.
Oh, that's an interesting one. I don't know. I'll get a little heat on that one.
But Trump's meeting with Putin in Alaska has yet to see a peace deal signed and an end to the invasion of Ukraine. Now, this week, it's being reported that the US is considering a new wave of sanctions on Russia's financial enablers, with a focus on the secondary countries acting as middlemen. But Trump also wants to see more action from the EU, demanding trade tariffs on India and China, the biggest buyers of Russian oil, as well as a quicker end to the EU importing Russian energy. Reacting to this, the EU has delayed presenting its latest sanction package and is now drawing up a new plan. All of this goes to show that cutting one country out of the financial system is not easy at all. And we talked about this issue at length at our Laundry Live event at the Ministry of Sound in London last year, where I was joined on stage by Chloe Cina, Jessica Cath, and Mitch Trehan. We put the following statements to the panel. The compliance industry is more focused on box ticking than truly fighting financial crime. And sanctions are great for headlines, but criminal networks use them as roadmap for laundering. The discussion got heated. And this is one of my favorite episodes of The Laundry ever, and it's still super relevant today. So we are going to bring it back to you this week. This is also a good time to remind you that we are available to bring our spicy onstage podcast discussions to your next AML event. So if you're cooking up something and want to change from the keynotes, drop us a message. We might be attending your next event. Let's get into the discussion.
Makes a world go round. Money makes a world go round. Money makes a it makes a world go round.
It hasn't stopped criminals. It is making their job easier. I think the industry on our side is way behind. And that's probably true because it just takes one or two great criminal organizations to influence the entire large ecosystem and world. That's affecting loads of institutions. You just need to find the weak link in there.
Money makes a world go round. It makes a world go round.
Welcome to The Laundry, the podcast connecting AML, compliance, and financial crime to the real world. I'm your host, Marit, and we are here live on stage at the Ministry of Sound in London. I never thought I would be here when we started a financial crime podcast 2.5 years ago. Today, in the show, maybe you saw some heads in jars in the intro. Maybe you've seen them floating around on LinkedIn. And that is because we sat around in the Strise office and thinking, what if we can just combine the knowledge of everyone in compliance into one? And we upload it to some AI and we can just ask it all the questions that we wanted to. So we tried that. We took the 100 first episodes, which amounted to 360,000 words, uploaded to an AI and tried to combine all the knowledge. And that's the AML Megamind AI. And today I'm here joined by some great panelists to test that Megamind AI against these panel of experts. So welcome to the show. You have all been on the show before, but for the audience who might not know you, can you guys please introduce yourself and a little bit about your background and what the audience should know about you? Chloe, you can start.
Well, you're looking at me, so I'm going to start. So I'm Chloe Cina. I'm from North London. It took a lot to get me here. But I'm safe. I've still got my jewellery. I'm a RUSI fellow. So far, yeah, still got to get home, right? I'm a RUSI fellow, so that's, for those of you that don't know, that's the Royal United Services Institute. It basically means that we get to think for a long time and do the kind of academic stuff around all of this and be a friend as well as a foe, namely a thorn in the government side, to make sure that what they're doing in terms of policy making is as impactful and as successful as possible. But prior to that, I've been a Foreign Office legal advisor, I've been in banking, I've been in private practice, but always in national security and sanctions.
And you have promised some spicy sanction story for later.
That's what you say. Who knows?
And Jessica, what should people know about you and your background?
Hello, so I'm Jess. I head up the financial crime practice at Thistle. I am on the dark side. I've been in consulting my entire career. I've worked with some really good firms and some really bad firms.
Why are you
And I've worked to build a lot of different financial crime control frameworks, and some of them have been really good. And we've really worked with a lot of people to sort a lot of stuff out. So, yeah, some of it's been good, but we've got some stories too.
And Mitch.
Thanks, everyone. And Jess looked at me when she said some bad firms. Jess and I have never worked together. I'm hoping it will happen.
I agree.
She's promised me a beer after this so we can go out and chat about it.
A whiskey too.
And a whiskey as well. Hey, everyone, my name is Mitch Trehan. I am the Chief Compliance Officer of Allica Bank. It's a pretty new bank. We've been going about 4 years. It's specifically focused on small, medium enterprises, but it's currently the fastest growing company in the UK for all of the Sunday Times history of its 27 years. It is Deloitte's top 50 technology companies of growth ever. I mean, the only companies in tech that have ever beaten us is Deliveroo and lastminute.com. So we are the fastest growing fintech in the UK of all time. And it's actually humongous fun. So we are hiring, just to make everybody aware. Look on LinkedIn. We are growing rapidly. This was a little bit of a pitch, but a little bit of background on me. So I originally started my career going all the way back to 13 years old in the Air Cadets for the RAF, just in Northern Ireland, and I felt a real passion for that. I had joined and signed up to the Air Force and spent the first few years of my career training to be a pilot in the Air Force. I had to stop flying because of an injury, but still very, very passionate about fighting criminal activity, fighting terrorism, doing all of that. So instead of doing it from a military perspective, I went into financial services. I fell into it at Citi originally and did Citi, Barclays, JP Morgan. But to really make a difference, I moved into fintech firms. You know, you can't change a supertanker quickly. These firms are agile. So I've done a few fintech firms, Banking Circle. There's a load of Banking Circle crew in here tonight. Are they going to make any noise? There you go. Brilliant. And currently at Allica. So that's me and a bit about who I am.
Well, thank you guys for the introduction. Let's dive into the discussion. So, the heads in the jars, the AML Megamind AI, we asked it to come up with 3 spicy takes from our first 100 episodes. And we are going to discuss 3 of these takes in the next 30 minutes. So, the first suggestion from the AML Megamind, like first spicy take, is the compliance industry is more focused on box ticking than truly fighting financial crime. And it adds, are we losing sight of the bigger goal here? Stopping criminals, not just satisfying regulators? Oh yeah, big shout out. So Mitch, maybe start with the Chief Compliance Officer here. So 35% of our experts on the show to date expressed concerns that the industry is over-regulated, leading to inefficiency and a tick box mentality. Do you find yourself ticking boxes a lot, Mitch?
That's a very, very provocative statement, right? I mean, straight away. And I like it because of the nature of it and how provocative it is. My first thing when I read it was, that depends on the culture of the firm. And I'll come back to that, but I think a lot of it depends on the culture of the firm. What does the CEO, the board, what are they really saying? What's that tone from the top? Is it tick a box and leave us, I'm not going to be the first to swear, and leave us alone? Or is it something else? So let's unpick that a little bit further. Box ticking, in my opinion, is required. It is necessary. In my mind, is a checklist. The money laundering regulations tell you what you need to do, and I'm not saying anything people don't know here. But if you then are sitting not doing the do every single day yourself, how do you get comfort that staff know what to do if you don't have operational processes, procedure, and box ticking exercises? But then when you overlay that, where I think people are missing a trick, is you get to the end of the box ticking exercise and you stop. You breathe and you go, what do I now know? And that's the part that I think people need to do more on, right? And that comes from a culture of the firm. Are you given capacity, planning, energy to say, hang on, I've now put this picture together. It feels like this, it might feel like that. Where do you get that piece of it? I could go on, but I'll pause there.
Jess, what do you think? Do the bad companies that you've worked with, do they do what Mitch say, or is it just check the box and move on?
I've seen a lot of box ticking, and I agree that we do need some of it. I'm actually a very big fan of strong operational processes because you have to make it work, and there has to be some form of checklist. But I actually push back a little bit that the regulators themselves often encourage the box ticking approach instead of focusing on actually fighting financial crime. So I've seen regulators push back on firms for very, very silly things like your contents page in your policy doesn't have the right numbers. That's ticking a box on having your policy in your contents page. That's not solving financial crime. So a lot of firms are really looking at the minute details of parts of the framework that don't actually make a difference. And that's coming, I think, from a lot of the regulators.
Are there any regulators in the audience, by the way, today? We hoped someone would come, but I'm not sure. No, I don't think so.
Deliberately staying quiet.
We can take a beer afterwards. So, Chloe, have you checked boxes or fought financial crime in your career?
So I think when it's that lovely green emoji and you can tick the box and visually it's satisfying, that's cool. But when you kind of try to put an X in it or do a tick with a draw and it doesn't look very nice, then that's quite frustrating. But at the end of the day, I've got my son in the audience, right? I get him to make his bed every single day. And at the end of the year, if he gets an A star, am I really going to look back and ask myself, did he make his bed every day? I'm going to look at the result. And I think what I found when I was global head of sanctions advisory at Deutsche was we were dealing with vast sums. I mean, the sorts of risk that was involved in terms of the Russia invasion of Ukraine and the money involved. We were talking about billions on the table. We were talking about nuclear deals. We were talking about money shifting in and out and whether or not, in fact, it was in line with the foreign policy objectives of the West. The regulator comes in and asks you, have you ticked all of those boxes? And they scrutinize you over that panic moment. That's when it has to be question marked.
But just to add to that, so I agree with you that we need to be focused on effective outcomes. We're not really focused on the outcomes. But when it comes to firms, do they really have enough information to be able to know whether or not your outcomes are right? So are you getting enough feedback from the NCA on suspicious activity reports that you're filing? No. So how do we really know if we're spotting suspicion? What we need to do is actually look for suspicious activity. To do that properly, you need feedback on whether or not you've actually spotted suspicion.
You do, but then this becomes really interesting because there's a delta between the NCA and the police and their threshold versus the threshold which is in POCA of, hey, reasonable suspicion that something might not. There's a delta between that. So what you're producing and providing is not the level that they need in order to prosecute. And then you start looking, then we're going to get political on taxpayers' money, how much money is given to those pieces, how much of a priority is it.
But also it's not your job to be putting together a fully police-ready pack.
Exactly.
You need to be effectively spotting suspicion. So I'm trying to tell every firm that I'm working with, you're not the police.
You're not the investigator.
And you're not the investigator. You do need to tick a box, but effectively to be actually spotting instances of suspicion. And that's it.
But explain it. But I mean, there must be a number of MLROs in the audience that get these reports coming through and it goes, these are all red flags, but what are you telling me? What's the so what? It comes to the risk-based approach. It comes to, okay, this is now classified as high risk through this box-ticking exercise. Who stops and goes, so what? So what is this telling me? Oh, I put it in this spreadsheet or I put it into the system. I tick the high-risk box. Somebody else does something. No. And that's the key part.
This is the wonderful thing about being a RUSI fellow. I can be completely independent and I have no boss and I'm just told to fly the flag. And so MLROs, they want to see what's coming in, but actually do they care about what's going out? Who's going to act on the red flags? And it's those that are in a position to be able to take action and investigate and stop and look at those typologies and develop them and make sure that the world knows about them. Right? And that's about flying the flag and making sure that we're all in a position to be able to share information. And that's one of the biggest problems that we have in the industry is actually not acting on the information. It's all very well having a great governance program, having a robust sanctions compliance program, but actually taking the next step and being courageous and saying, right, this is a problem and this is how we're going to deal with it.
I can't agree more. The NCA has this, I don't know if people are aware of the specials program. So you can apply and they want industry experience to come in and help and actually educate and see it from both sides. And I keep looking, and that specials program of the NCA has been closed for years. I haven't seen it open. I haven't seen anybody looking for volunteers. From the RUSI side, maybe there's something you can remind or do something. There's people that want to help, that have this intel that industry wider can use. Some people do it just for the money. Financial crime's not where you make the money on this side, but most of us do it because we love it. I'd happily become an NCA special and help. It's not there.
Well, I love that you guys are so engaged in our first spicy take. But before we move to the next one, and also hear from the audience, just to our panelists, when was the last moment that you guys felt like, wow, I'm fighting financial crime now? You felt like that hero fighting crime, like Superman.
Today.
Good answer.
No, genuinely, I think it is different depending on the role that you face within a firm. The role I actually have is as an MLRO, and people are coming to me with, we find this, we find that, we find the other. This is our conclusion, this is our decision, what should we be doing? So a big part of my job every single day is reviewing, are these red flags, are they suspicious, are we reporting it, should we be stopping this account, has there been fraud, how can we still allow money to come into account because we actually believe this is a fraudster and not let the money leave? Because that's one of the key attributes. I think whenever you've spotted a fraudster, you don't want to shut down the account because all they do is phone the victim and say, oh, sorry, here's a new bank account detail to send it to. What you want to do is let as much money as possible come in and just not let it go out until they figure out, maybe I should find another account. And then you hold the money and return it to the victims in a way that they then understand that they're not going to pay it to someone else and they've been saved. And that for me is a really key attribute. It's not just the box ticking piece, but how do you actually help society?
My role is very different. I never feel like I'm fighting financial crime, but I feel like I'm building things that are effective and are commercial, and I'm preventing firms from actually going under. So a lot of firms are under a lot of pressure right now, and financial crime is expensive, compliance is expensive. They're spending a lot of money on this stuff, but we need our financial services industry to actually be here next year. So what I end up spending my time doing is building frameworks that are commercially right for the size and the risk profile of the business.
And Chloe, do you fight financial crime at RUSI?
Every day. Kind of spanning my entire career, I've covered everything from the Iran nuclear deal to small boats to Ebola. And just last week, I got a call because people know who I am and they know that I can speak to the right people and have speed dials to Whitehall. And I got a call saying we got a couple of EU nationals in an African country who have been kidnapped, and there is a ransom of 5 million and we need help in order to secure their release. What do we do? And I helped, right? I mean, it was late at night. I didn't get a fee, but it's people's lives at stake. So I think, kidnapping, that's financial crime. Oh, just the extra fact was that the person that was demanding the ransom happened to be an OFAC SDN.
Oh, wow. All right, audience, we need to hear from you. So, if you agree that compliance has become more focused on box ticking than financial crime, please make some noise now. Okay, like medium. And if you think you're still truly fighting financial crime, make some noise now. I guess it's like, the audience is like the AML mega mind. It's like 50-50. It's like, a bit of box ticking and a bit of financial crime as well. Our overall goal at Strise? Eradicate financial crime. To achieve this, we know we have to build a network of expert partners to put together the ultimate package for compliance and AML teams globally. Let's hear what Plenitude, the leading independent consultancy in financial crime compliance, and one of our partners has to say.
The single biggest issue that are facing our clients in regulated firms at the moment is the increasing cost of compliance. Some of the pain points that clients are trying to address is that requirement to automate both AML and KYC controls. We've been working with Strise initially on a proof of concept exercise to test their solutions in the UK marketplace. But now we've formalised that partnership and we're now in a position to obviously offer to our clients Strise solutions alongside advisory and implementation support as part of deployment of those solutions. One of the things that we really like about Strise and their solutions is it does enable our clients to realise the benefits of AI relatively quickly, and the implementation timelines are relatively short compared to other solutions.
Want to work together? Visit Strise.ai and click Become a Partner to book a meeting. Okay, moving on to our second spicy topic from the Mega Mind. Chloe, now I'm looking forward to hearing from you on this topic, and that is, the AML Megamind said, sanctions are great for headlines, but criminal networks use them as a roadmap for laundering. And it adds, ironically, sanctions create a blueprint for these networks to refine their laundering tactics, with sanctions-busting schemes becoming more advanced by the day. Chloe, as our sanctions expert, what do you think?
To a certain extent, I agree with it. But of course, sanctions are there for so many different reasons. They have a specific foreign policy objective. And it's really hard to digest that when you're in the industry and you're not actually at the creation, at the design side of these things. And I just think if we look back at a regime like Syria, which everybody forgets because that war started in 2011, we think, well, what were the sanctions imposed then? And they were there to coerce behavior, and that behavior didn't change, and the civilian population kept on being repressed, and that is the case still today. Now, of course, sanctions were evaded then, but they were there presentationally to make the civilian population know that people still cared, that the West were there to support them in whatever way. And we see that in so many different regimes, in the misappropriation regimes, in the nuclear regimes, even in Russia. A lot of the sanctions designations that we've seen, even some of the trade measures that we've seen, are hugely complex to comply with. But they're there to make people in Ukraine, those that are on the battlefield, that are actually fighting for Europe's security at the end of the day, that we still care. And okay, people are going to use them as ways to make money. People are going to flagrantly disregard the oil price cap, but that's what crime is about. You find ways around, you find loopholes. But again, we have to think at the end of the day, what is the purpose behind this? And there are so many multifaceted reasons. We can't just sort of simplify it and say, it's there to allow criminal networks to exploit them. Of course that is the case, but it doesn't stop them being of benefit to the people that actually need them on the other side.
And you also, on this topic, you also promised us some spicy stories. What are some of the most crazy sanction evasion stories that you have actually seen? Because it's easy to talk about it in like hypothetical terms, but actually hearing if you've seen someone get around it and like in your previous jobs.
Sanctions evasion stories are really difficult and really hard to come by. I was thinking, you said to me, say something spicy. I think the most spicy thing that I wanted to say was that I'm here tonight at the ministry, and last week I was quoted with a load of ministers in government because the Office of Trade Sanctions Implementation, OTSI, opened its doors and they called me and said, we know you've got credibility in the industry. Can you say something nice about government and be quoted on record? And I was like, yeah, for sure, I can do that. And actually, it's those sorts of things. It's really having a collegiate network around you, and it's being able to straddle both the public and the private sector to just make a bit of a difference. It's hard for everyone. I've got spicy stories, you know that, but...
Maybe for afterwards. But Mitch, what do you think when you hear a new sanction package is coming?
It depends on... So firstly, that writing on the wall, that actually upsets me. Right, that they're great for headlines, but they use them for that.
Good. Be upset with the AML Megamind.
Emotionally, I was like, no, that's not it. And I emphasize with that thing that Chloe was saying, right? That's not the purpose, and there is great and good happening with it. For me, when I see that as new sanctions package or anything else, it depends on the firm I've been at. So when it was a correspondent banking type relationship with a lot of international payments, that's a really big thing when new sanctions packages come out, right? You've got to really look at it, that you're placing a lot of reliance on other people. And I've found and people will know this as well, that some firms don't take it as seriously as others. They're like, I don't need to do that. My correspondent bank checks sanctions before it gets to me, or the person above that will check it. The remitter checks it before it gets to me. I don't need to do this, that, and the other. So when I hear of a new sanctions package coming through, I think of two things. One, who's my tech provider? When are they going to update the lists? What's this going to do for my fuzzy logic and my false positive rates? And what do we need to look at, right? So it's a real practical side. And then it's also, what are the other banks doing, and where do I need to worry about payments coming in? And indeed who I'm paying out. And the last part is, whenever I can get to it, okay, what is really going on with why these sanctions packages are coming out? What's the secondary or tertiary aspects that we can do to try and help the world at large? So let's take a bigger example. Russia came out a while before. People didn't just start reviewing sanctions. They actually started taking risk appetite decisions against the country as a whole. That's the secondary, and people know what they're doing, right? When OFSI does this and other people do it, they are doing certain things to influence society at large without having to take a legal doctrine to do so. And for me, I try to stop and think, what is that? But that's a lot of stuff, right? I've just said lots of words. It's when I look at it genuinely, it's like, right, what
You
do I
haven't
do now?
sworn.
I haven't. I was going to say yet, but I haven't. I'm proud of that.
If people complain about yet another sanction package, having to implement it, you're not one of those.
Absolutely not. And I think people that do, oh, this is going to be bad, right? This is an Irishman speaking. So I think if people do, it's a very British culture to complain about stuff. Right, see, there's giggles there. People know what I'm saying. People have made a living out of sanctions, right? They really have. When everything happened, the salaries of individuals in this space over the last few years changed dramatically. Everyone knows this, right? Some people are smiling because you've taken advantage of it. Yeah, it's. I don't think anybody really says, "Oh no," and if they do, come and chat to me after. I can change your mind.
Go and find Mitch afterwards. Jess, what's your take on sanctions from your perspective?
So everyone that we're working with is really struggling with actually just doing this. So I actually disagree with you that it's all chill and it's all fine. A lot of firms that we're seeing just rely on their tool. It's fine, I'm complying, I've got this tool in place. They're not looking at the tool, they're not thinking about the tool, they're not configuring it. They don't know what list they're screening against. They're probably over-screening and screening every single list on the planet, or they're screening a few lists and not enough. And obviously we've seen a recent fine recently about sub-lists and wrong screening of lists. So post that fine, we've had a lot of questions on what do I screen against? Is my tool up to scratch? Can you come in and assure it? What should I be doing? Should I be testing my tool on an annual basis? Absolutely, yes. Yes, you need to look at it, and you need to be looking at it not just on an annual basis, but more regularly. So a lot of firms we're dealing with just relying on the tool, and that is not how you comply with sanctions. You really need to understand what is your exposure, who are your customers, where are you operating, where are your payment flows, and then really think about the entire sanctions framework, not just thinking I put a tool in place and it's the job done.
All right, audience, it's time to hear from you on the topic of sanctions. So now everyone knows how this goes. I will say one thing, and if you agree, you cheer. If not, wait for the next thing. If you think sanctions are just about the headlines, more than stopping criminals, please make some noise now. If you think sanctions do have an impact outside of the headlines, please make some noise now. Okay, that's good. That's good. So we are going to discuss the final take from the Mega Mind for this evening, and that is, of course, we can't go an evening without it, AI. So AI hasn't stopped criminals, it's just made their jobs easier. And the Mega Mind adds, is the industry overhyping the role of tech in stopping money laundering while clever criminals easily adapt and outmaneuver automated systems? Ouch, Mega Mind, that one hurts. I gotta say, we did a podcast recently where we actually asked ChatGPT to teach us how to launder money. And we also did another one where we had ChatGPT teach us how to evade sanctions, where we actually created 2 characters on 2 different phones. And we had the GPTs have a conversation together on how they were gonna evade sanctions. And it actually came down to GPT suggesting different networks in specific geographical regions that we could contact. And GPT said, do you want me to put you in contact with these people? Obviously, it couldn't do that yet, but it's not so hard to imagine a future that's quite soon, where you not only get the to-do list or how-to list, but you have the agents doing it actually for you. So, I mean, it's easy to see how criminals can use this. But what do you guys think? Has AI helped stop criminals, or is it just enabling them?
Well, it's so funny you should ask that, because I'm a big fan of AI. I've totally embraced it. And I think there's some really clever things that you can do, especially if you're an expert already. You can feed your stuff in. You've got the confidence that you can challenge it. But the first kind of encounter I had with ChatGPT, and it's probably about December last year, and I said to ChatGPT, come on, tell me about the snatched Land Rover IED cases with the Ministry of Defence. Were those vehicles inadequately built in order to safeguard the soldiers that were out in Afghanistan and that were subsequently blown up, and that could have been deaths that were prevented? And I waited for ChatGPT to analyse and think, and it came back and said, this is national security stuff and I don't feel comfortable or capable to comment on it, and just went completely silent. So you can outwit if you want to.
Yeah, you need to be clever and, there's stupid safeguards in place.
But I think, of course, any of these schemes, right, if it's available on open source, ChatGPT is going to find it. And if you want it to digest something very quickly, like take 3 reports and say, what have I missed? Have I covered everything? Namely, a whole heap of oil price cap evasion schemes, then you're going to be able to put that into a system and be resource useful, right? Let's all think of it as a positive, but we need to be further ahead than the criminals that are using ChatGPT, right? And so if we're working in an organization, which I'm not, which is the great thing, you can say, I'm not bound by the constraints of a financial institution, which says you can't put that confidential customer data into it. Whereas if you're working for a criminal network, of course you can plug it in and you can get your answer more quickly.
Yeah, the criminals don't have to comply with any regulations, that's for sure. But Mitch, as the chief compliance officer here, have you seen more AI being used to do crime or stopping?
So it's hard to directly attribute specific cases to AI and not AI, etc. Right? So when you get into root cause analysis, that's when you can do more. But I agree holistically with this statement. AI hasn't stopped criminals. It is making their jobs easier. So if you take AI, which is this sort of throw around term that we've got at the minute, there's 4 key attributes to it, right? You've got Gen AI, which is, hey, make me look pretty. And it does voices, it does all kinds of stuff, right? Images, anything that can fool other people. Then you've got large language models, ChatGPT. You've got deep learning, Alexa, Siri, those sorts of stuff. And then you've got machine learning, which we all know, we all love. It's all our transaction monitoring is using machine learning and those rules. And you've got those 4 segments. And what I'm finding is that criminals are using these, all of them, to convince victims, not necessarily the banks, but other people, hey, send me money. Hey, do this. Hey, a chatbot finding victims in order to make payments illegally or steal or fraudulent. So that's what I'm finding criminals using it for. Firms, on the other hand, have not yet caught up. Not enough firms are using AI, even just using Copilot, to the point that you made earlier of asking this question, seeing what data comes out. People still are using Google to do open search research when there are all of these tools that firms have just not implemented yet. And I talk about this across with other people saying, are you using this? Have you got Copilot just to help you find stuff quickly? Most people I'm talking to are no. And I'm like, why not? It is there. It is there for firms to use. It is there for compliance officers at any grade to use and go, hey, how can we then start using typologies, plugging this into systems and learning what's happening? So I agree with the statement. Hasn't stopped criminals. It is making their job easier. I think the industry on our side is way behind. And that's probably true because it just takes 1 or 2 great criminal organizations to influence the entire large ecosystem and world. That's affecting loads of institutions. You just need to find the weak link in there.
Jess, what do you think? Have you implemented a lot of AI lately, or is it...
No. And I'm going to push back on Mitch a little bit on this again.
Again?
The second time today.
Oh, you rattled me up on the last one. I've got so much I want to talk to you about in sanctions.
Because you're in, the UK, as you said in the beginning, one of the fastest growing fintechs. We work with a whole range of firms. Some are not the fastest growing fintechs, and some are absolutely massive, doing some really great stuff. Again, more in the machine learning, transaction monitoring space. But a lot of them don't have the money to start implementing really big AI systems, and a lot of them don't need to. So it comes back to who are your customers, what is your product, what are you trying to do? So if you have low volumes of very high value, the best thing you can do is really understand your customer. And what is that one transaction that they're doing of going back to 1MDB, if they've got 500 million coming in, really understand. You don't need AI to do that. But if you've got really high volumes...
Would AI help? You don't need it. That wasn't my point.
It may very well help. But if we look at it from a commercial angle here, you might not need to do that. And I have seen a lot of firms implementing AI, getting it wrong. So I've got one who's been in a 2-year implementation program with a vendor, and the vendor still cannot explain the second layer of their AI model. And this is in sanction screening, and they're missing sanctions hits. So they are trying to reduce false positives. The first AI model makes sense. The second one that presents them with their top 100 hits does not work. So you have to be very, very cautious. So yes, there is a lot of opportunity in AI, but you have to be cautious.
Is that an AI model or a rule gone wrong?
It's a model. Whether or not the vendor can actually explain, I don't think it is. I think it's a bunch of rules. But
right, and there's difference. That's why I said the 4 parts, and I think that's really, really clear and key. Machine learning, deep learning, Gen AI,
but you need to be able to explain it.
Yeah, and you need an expert to be able to come in and say, this is what you need to be thinking about. And that's often the problem.
But the vendor themselves couldn't explain their own model.
Yeah, but vendors don't know anything.
Oh, Chloe, that hurts.
Oh, applause as well.
So, final question on this topic. Is there anything that you just like, okay, here's the red line, we are not handing this over to AI at all? Like, where does that line go? What would you never have an AI do?
Nothing. I'd hand it all over immediately. No, I think at this point, AI is still limited. So if you're talking about in a time frame today, there's lots of things I wouldn't hand over to an AI because it is very much on experience. On this one, the example you give, Jess, is what are the rules? What's popping out? Is there bias in the rules? What have we created? What's the answer? Re-review, etc. But eventually, yeah, I'd be up for that. I'd say most things can go over to an AI because it is just process driven, right? Coming back to the checklist piece at the very, very start, this is still something that humans can do that AI can do quicker. There are efficiencies in it. AI can detect AI better than a human can, right? If it's a synthetic voice or a synthetic image, right? The way that comes through, the human eye can't tell, and AI can tell. From putting together reports, all of that can happen quicker. Again, I don't think we're there yet, but I don't think we're far off it. So for me, I'd hand most things over except for the explanation between management to board. That still needs to be human.
Yeah, for me, it's governance, decision making. But also there are some elements of interacting with customers that I still think is better for humans to do. A lot of it, your customer relations can be dealt with through AI, a lot of it. No,
I agree with that, 100%. Yeah. Human interaction from a customer perspective, I would never hand that to an AI.
One good example, somebody under a romance scam. It's really hard to get someone out of a romance scam. Very hard. And you have to talk to them about 7 times to explain. But it's much better coming from a human. At that point, escalated up to a human being.
I said I embrace AI from the outset. And I think that there is so much great stuff that's being done out there. And I reckon on the percentile, 98% of the stuff that can be done by humans currently is eventually going to be able to be done through AI. And I think the one hesitation I have is that there is no one solution that fits, no one size fits all. And what is really nice is to actually see vendors saying, we've got something that is bespoke that will work for your organization and it will tackle your financial crime problems because we've listened to you, we've listened to the experts, and we have incorporated that. And there you can take away all of the unpleasant noise that you have when you get to the very top level of decision making. But you're right, you have to have the governance in place. You have to have the systems that can integrate everything around that. But the solutions that are out there are mind-blowing. And that's where the future is. And I'm totally sold on that front.
All right, we need to also hear the audience thoughts. So if you think AI is not stopping criminals but making their life easier, make some noise now. And if you think we can use AI to stop criminals, make some noise now. All right, we are at the end of this podcast episode, but we will play a super quick game with our panelists and the audience in the room. And this game is called Megamind or Movie Line. So we have taken some quotes from our guests that we've had to date and mixed them up with some lines from movies. So I'll give each and every one of you a line, a quote, and you will have to decide, is it from a movie or is it from an AML, is it from the AML Megamind? So Chloe, you go first. The first quote is, gangsters act like CEOs. What do you think, AML Megamind or movie?
Megamind.
Okay, audience, if you think it's the Megamind, cheer now. If you think it's a movie line, cheer now. It's actually not a line from a Martin Scorsese's movie. It's actually from Miles Johnson, Financial Times journalist, who has also been on the show The Last Laundry Live we did. So, Jess, your quote is, you can't show up to a gunfight with a knife.
I mean, definitely Megamind. I'm going for it straight away.
And audience, do you think it's a Megamind? Or do you agree with Jess? Cheer now.
I think it's...
It actually is the Megamind who came up with this. Yes, yes. So this is this is not Sean Connery in Usual Suspect, but it is Marcus, who is the Chief Risk and Compliance Officer in Januar. Okay, Mitch, are you ready?
Yeah.
Just because you can't see something doesn't mean it isn't there. Movie line or Megamind?
I think of stars and Friends. Just because you can't see stars, you always know they're there. I'm sure I've heard it on that. Or I'm actually getting Usual Suspects. You've planted that in my head just because, you know, the greatest trick the devil ever pulled was convincing the world he didn't exist. So I'm going to go with movie line because the other two were not, and also because I'm sure it's, I've seen it. I'm going to say movie. I'm going to say The Santa Claus, and it's a kid that talks to him about, have you seen a Santa's reindeer? And in the reindeer, he's like, no, I haven't. And he's like, well, actually, have you seen $1 million? And he's like, no, I haven't. Well, it doesn't mean it doesn't exist. So I'm going to say a movie.
Okay, are we think it's, do everyone in the audience think it's a movie?
Or I made all it up just to convince people.
It is from a movie. It's from the 1998 film Small Soldiers, starring Tommy Lee Jones, which was about AI chips being inserted into action figures with dangerous consequences. This brings this spin of the laundry to an end. To our panel, thank you so much for joining me. Where can people find you and connect with you?
Chloe Cina, LinkedIn.
This is going to be super similar. Jessica Cath on LinkedIn.
You can't. I'm like a ghost you can never find. No, I'm on LinkedIn, and yeah, please connect with me.
Thanks to everyone who was listening to this respin. If you've enjoyed this podcast, check out the back catalog of more than 130 episodes and follow The Laundry on your podcast platform of choice. Please share the podcast on your social media channels, tell a colleague about it, listen, give us a 5-star rating. It really helps people to find us. And if you got something interesting you want to share with us, or maybe you want to be a guest, or you have an idea for an episode, please contact us. You can either email us at laundry@strise.ai, comment on my LinkedIn page, the Strise LinkedIn page. You will be able to connect with us. Your host for this episode was me, Marit. Our producer was Matthew. Our editor was Dominic. And our engineer was Nicholas. The Laundry is proudly produced by Strise. We build AML automation software. Visit strise.ai for more information. See you next week.
Money make a world go round.
As we're at the Ministry of Sound, think of us like two really cool DJs laying down the program for the evening.
The Laundry is proudly produced by Strise, your AML automation software for faster onboarding, smarter monitoring, and growth without overhead.